Hello and welcome to another special edition of Android Faithful. We're your usually weekly source of Android discussion about news, hardware, apps, and all things like that. I'm Ron Richards.
I'm Jason Howell, coming to you from Studio Garage.
Hey, whatever it takes, man. Whatever it takes. As mentioned, this is another special edition, special interview episode of Android Faithful. We're coming to you not on our regular Tuesday time slot and with a pre-recorded episode. We had such a great response from that interview we did with Mindy from Google about Material 3 Expressive last month that we were talking over at Android Faithful headquarters. And like, we should do these. We should do more of these.
Heck yeah.
Special interview episodes, right? So,
well, yeah, because like our news episodes are a very specific thing. There's always a ton of news to do. And if we link in the interviews with the news, like sometimes it works. Maybe it's very topical to a specific thing we're talking about, but then we miss out on some of the news. And you know, why not just like devote an episode to some of these interviews so that you know exactly what you're getting and it doesn't get in the way of the news, which is really important to what we do.
And one of the things that I love that we've done in the past is actually going behind the scenes of the companies and the apps and the hardware that we're all talking about every week, and getting to know the people who are making it, who are making the things that we're talking about week in and week out. And, you know, there's just so many QPR1, QPR2 releases that Michelle gets very detailed for us in, and there are so many. It seems like Samsung's having an event once a month now, unveiling new hardware, and there's just so much to go over. So it's nice to have a little breathing room to have just a great discussion with a really interesting guest. And so here we are in September, and this month we're delighted to welcome the new CEO of Beeper, Kishan Bagaria, to come onto the show to chat with us about what's going on in the world of Beeper, because we're longtime listeners of the show know that we're huge fans of Beeper from the moment that it launched years ago. We had Eric, their previous CEO, on the show when they ruffled the feathers, when they shook the landscape of the messaging world by breaking Apple's encryption and breaking iMessage, and really kind of shot across the bow in terms of the messaging wars. And so this past summer in July, they launched a whole bunch of new features that we talked to Kishan about. That he, some really interesting stuff. Really kind of putting an emphasis on device level security and encryption, and giving more tools to have a unified messaging platform for people to use. But of course, also we wanted to kind of pull back the curtain and see what was it like inside Beeper during those tumultuous days with Apple, and when the DOJ and senators were getting involved and commenting on it and things like that. So I don't know. I thought it was a really great discussion. Jason, you joined me for it. What did you think of our chat with him?
Yeah, no, fantastic discussion. You're all going to hear all about it. But I think, really the inside kind of idea or perspective on, because Beeper really kind of, to a certain degree, seemed to be a part of setting the Tinder on fire when it came to kind of this messaging back and forth between Google and Apple. Beeper was kind of integrated and involved in there, and whether we thought that they're kind of like Max in the cloud, but relaying messaging between was going to last long term or not, they're kind of at a point right now where it's less necessary because RCS has happened. They've been so integral to and integrated with that whole process. Yeah. So it's been an interesting transition. Also, kind of the company ethos being dedicated to kind of openness as they were approaching Apple's messaging platform and how that integrates to their future vision for the company. We talk about a lot. We cover a lot of ground in this interview.
So we don't want to, with no further ado, we don't want to delay it much longer. So please enjoy this conversation with Kishan Bagaria from Beeper, CEO of Beeper, and stay tuned for our, this coming Tuesday will be the next episode of Android Faithful. And if you have any requests of folks you'd like us to talk to, companies you'd like us to go kind of more in depth on, shoot us an email over at contact@androidfaithful.com. We'd love to hear from you, our community, as to who you'd like us to to chat with, to get more insight into as we do more of these special interview episodes. So yeah, feel free to let us know who you want to hear from. But that said, let's get right into the interview. And we're so excited to be here with the CEO of Beeper, Kishan Bagaria. How you doing? Thanks for joining us.
Good. Glad to be here. How are you, Ron?
Doing okay. So we've previously had your predecessor, Eric Migakovsky, on the show. So we're super excited to have the legacy of Beeper CEOs on Android Faithful. Can you share with us and our audience a little bit about your background and what interested you in joining the Beeper team in the CEO role?
Yeah, absolutely. Let me go back to 2020. So I started a side project called text.com, which is a all-in-one messaging app, same as Beeper, same idea. I built it myself, and then shared it with friends. It got viral, got a lot of people interested in it. It grew, and then in a few years, in 2023, I met Matt Mullenweg, the founder of Automatic. We started chatting and realized that we had a lot of shared values. So we ended up joining Automatic. And then we were looking at the competition, the space, and Beeper was an amazing app, amazing team, doing the same thing. So we thought we should just join forces. So we acquired Beeper, and Eric joined as well, helping out in the transition. So yeah, that was when we merged the text.com and Beeper teams, and we set on a journey to merge the products. So it's been a long ride. And this is not just a role for me, but it's like, I'm a builder at heart. I built this messaging for myself, and I'm just really excited to build it more and share it with everyone.
I share that that kind of entrepreneurial spirit with you. Everything that I've ever worked on has, like, if this podcast, for instance, we did this podcast because we wanted a podcast that talked about Android the way that we talked about it amongst our friends. So when you're building something that you want to use, that's really the best place to build it from. So you're clearly in the right spot for it. So well, congratulations on taking the CEO role. And that was announced earlier this summer. How has it been since the announcement rolled out, and now that you're in the pilot seat? And although it's kind of not new territory for you, right?
Yeah, thank you. It's been fun. It's been like a crazy ride over the past few years. Like there's so much story going on here that's like almost could be a good plot for the next season of Silicon Valley if they ever decide to make that. It's pretty fun.
Great.
Right on. Well, you have also kind of along with the organizational changes, and of course we've covered all this news because we are just kind of long-term fans of the Beeper product, announced some changes to the services, kind of expanded on the tier offerings. There's the Beeper Plus. There's also the the name that you can't help but laugh a little bit when you hear it, Beeper Plus Plus, which I don't know who you have on staff that's naming the features, but I give you 2 thumbs up for that. Can you, because we're going to talk about these kind of in deeper detail throughout, but can you give us just kind of a quick rundown of what some of these features are that are available to users now within these new tiers, and kind of what has the response been to the changes? Because Beeper was a certain product, and now it's kind of expanded out. It's kind of changed and morphed over the last year, especially. So I'm curious to hear your thoughts on that.
The new Beeper is all about superpowers. We just want to give you everything that the status quo does not care about. So, for example, do you have any of those friends who just keeps sending in voice notes all the time?
Yes, I do.
Yeah, so with we all know that person. It's sometimes you cannot listen to those voice notes and you just want to respond quickly. So with Beeper, for example, you now have voice note transcriptions. So we use AI to transcribe everything. So if you're in a place where you cannot listen, you can just read them and respond quickly. Similar to that, we have something called incognito mode. So we've all done that thing where we read the notification when we were not ready to respond to a message. With incognito mode, you can actually open chats on Beeper without letting the other person know. So no read zips go through until you're ready to respond. And we also have something called schedule send across all networks, or reminders where if you want to follow up with someone, you can just set a reminder on that chat, and Beeper will just pop that back whenever you're ready to check back in on that chat. And We also have multiple accounts. So I'm an immigrant. I have a WhatsApp India number. I have a WhatsApp US number, and I don't want to juggle apps there. I can just see that both of those, all the chats from both of those accounts in just one app on Beeper.
How have the users who have been with Beeper for such a long time, because Beeper has a has a history, has an arc to it, and a really fascinating story with the kind of services that were included to kind of integrate Apple's iMessage. It's become a different product over the years. And I'm curious to know how kind of the longer term users that have been with Beeper for a long time, how they've reacted and responded to some of these new features and these new tiers. Have you been pretty satisfied with what you're seeing?
Yeah, we have had incredible response from the existing users. We also wanted to make sure that we were generous with the plans or the grandfathering. So if you were a Beeper user before we introduced the paid plans, we did not take away any features from you. So all the accounts that you had already, they will continue to work. So all our new plans are mostly for the new users that we are acquiring, and making sure that they are happy with the experience and continue to use Beaver as their primary driver.
Great. And one of the more interesting kind of features that you guys kind of rolled out, and especially in this landscape that we're in as more and more users are becoming more and more privacy minded and security minded, and you with this latest round of features, you guys shifted to on-device connections versus utilizing Beeper Cloud. And so you guys have made a conscious choice to make your service more security and privacy minded. Obviously, increased security has a lot of hard trade-offs that come with it. So I'm curious to know if you guys over at Beeper HQ have encountered any real notable trade-offs with that transition, or have those trade-offs really balanced out the decision to support that increased level of security and support the approach of on-device connections?
Yeah, great question. This was a huge technical feat to do all this. But let me ask you this. What do you guys think about privacy? Do you use Signal? Do you think it's fine to have a cloud that has all your data, for example?
Yeah, I mean, the thing is, I use all of them, and they all have kind of different approaches. It really just depends on where the people are. But I'd say as a general rule, I care about privacy. I care about on-device versus cloud. Yeah, that's my answer.
Yeah, I mean, it's hard not to. Like I use Telegram, I use Signal, I use WhatsApp. I'm on all the messaging applications. I joke, though, in that while I care about it, I'm not that interesting, right? But I do have friends who are journalists. I do have friends who are working in sensitive areas where they very much do care about it. Yeah. They come to me for advice, and so that's why I kind of keep my eye on it. But nobody cares what time my kid's soccer game is. So,
No, yeah, definitely. Like, it's not just about you; it's also about the other person. If you're talking to someone who is really caring about privacy, I think we should have a very private product. I'm a privacy extremist myself, so I think we should just build products as secure as possible, just because we can actually have that constraint and then make something really private and secure by default. So with this move, now that we let go of Beeper Cloud as we made that optional. So if you're using Beeper on device for something like Signal, it's as secure as using Signal on the official app. And I think the only trade-off here is if you're setting up Beeper on another device, you have to go through the whole setup process again. But I think that's a small trade-off in contrast to the big benefit that you get.
For sure.
Yeah, indeed. There's always a little bit of a trade-off, right? When you're talking about privacy and security, it's always that like convenience, yay, but that lessens security, or friction, but that increases security. And sometimes it's hard to convey that to users so that they understand like how do I really feel about this product and where it fits into my life. I'm super curious to talk to you a little bit about, because Beeper has very publicly gone through back and forth in many different ways with kind of the Apple product and messaging landscape, and things have changed a lot to the messaging landscape, even in the last year, even in the time that you've been with the company. It's been quite an up and down. Obviously, Beeper had a very public attempt to break through Apple's kind of lock-in with messaging, Google's RCS campaign. Eventually, Apple kind of caved in, supported RCS, but that didn't happen. But along with that was Apple, Beeper rolling out the support, and then a few days later, Apple kind of making changes to make that difficult. There's a lot of, from the outside looking in, there seems to be a lot of machinations, and I don't know if it's drama or what, but I'm really curious to kind of hear a little bit of inside scoop on what it's like inside the company to have managed and walked through that experience in the last year.
Yeah. It's always fun when you have interesting players in the market and the antitrust people get involved. So I think interop is great. More apps should be more open. Apple rolling out RCS is also amazing. We're big fans of the EU, and we have good relationships with many of the regulators. It's a great validation. The industry is moving towards a landscape where more and more user data is owned by the user, and I think Gmail is a good example here, where it's built on an open protocol. You can use any email client you want for Gmail. That's not true for messaging. Like, you have RCS now, you have SMS. But something like, if you're using WhatsApp or Signal or iMessage, you are basically siloed and you only have the official apps to use. There's no concept of texting clients. Now with Beeper, you actually have texting clients. And ideally, in this world, I think we should have more and more of those, more Beepers that connect to WhatsApp or Signal or something else.
Well, so you mentioned that you have good relationships with the regulators in the EU and things like that, and clearly after the whole dust up with Apple happened, there was a lot of attention here in the United States from the Department of Justice. Some senators got involved, antitrust advocates and stuff like that, who saw this as kind of an example of Apple's closed ecosystem as being stifling for the user. We're curious to hear, what Beeper's exposure to those legal and regulatory headwinds, how those continue to influence your guys' efforts today in the States, and that relationship with Apple, and with Google or with whomever, and basically, when a user sits down, I get a new Pixel 10 from Google, there's a default messaging app in here. Why should I, as a user, choose not to use that and choose Beeper instead? And how is that important from a regulatory state?
So the way I think about this is, someone like Tim Cook or Sundar Pichai aren't really thinking about messaging as much. They're not trying to innovate. They don't wake up thinking about messaging. And Beeper is mostly focused on making what is amazing for the user, what's an amazing messaging client in 2025. All these big tech companies are mostly interested in stealing your attention or locking in your data, or both. So, for example, you open Instagram or Twitter, and then you get sucked into the algorithm. Just when you're trying to send a reply back to your friend, you don't want to be seeing all that. And what Beeper does here is it just gives you back control of your attention, your focus, and you can just chat with your friends without any of the distractions. I think the regulators are doing really good here, where, I think it's definitely heading in a positive direction.
Yep.
And we're big supporters.
Want to talk on a deeper level about kind of the overall business strategy, but we are going to take a quick break. And when we come back, I want to talk to you about something that Matt Mullenweg told The Verge recently. Super curious to hear your take about 100 million users. We're going to talk about that in a second. All right, so let's talk a little bit about, on a deeper level, about kind of the business strategy and where things are going, because there's things that are related to Beeper, yes, but then there's also some acquisitions that I'm really curious about. Before we get there, though, Matt Mullenweg, CEO of Automatic, recently did an interview with The Verge. There, he stated a goal of 100 million users, and I'm curious to hear what that path looks like for Beeper. How does Beeper take what's worked so far, some of these changes and tiers, and I'm sure the acquisitions and the kind of collaborative quality of the different companies under the same umbrella, maybe that's part of it. But I'm curious to hear what the path is that Beeper plans to take to hit that goal, because 100 million users, that's a lot of users, I have to imagine.
That's a lot of users, indeed. But if you think about it, everyone who's a user of the internet, there's like 4 billion or someone.
Yeah.
Something that are on the internet, they all message, they all use a messaging app. So it's literally everyone who's messaging today. And regarding our plans, I like how Apple is secretive and then they don't share anything until they have shipped. But I'll tell you this, our main focus here is making a messaging app that people cannot live without. We also want to increase our distribution, work with hardware manufacturers, platforms, and we also want to make it as private and as open as possible so that we have the trust by default. So again, messaging is like the most universal behavior. Everyone talks, everyone chats. And we just think that building the best experience will get us the growth we need.
Yeah, because I mean, it is a universal need. The fact that we're all using so many different messaging platforms. Like I've got a folder on my my home screen that is like, I don't know, 9 or 12 different messaging platforms. Some of them closed, some of them open.
It drives me crazy. I say there's too many ways to get in touch with me. Like I get so many notifications across too many messaging apps, and there's literally a coworker was messaging me 4 different ways trying to get my attention. It's very frustrating.
well, and it's a lot of cognitive load, I think, for users to go through, to be like, okay, well, this one person in my life, I know that they're over here versus over there. And so it's, we have to kind of organize that. The openness factor of Beeper's roadmap is really interesting to me. Beeper as a company pushed for openness in its relationship to kind of Apple's iMessage product. Really, Beeper was pushing the envelope on that to say, hey, open up a little bit more. And if you guys aren't going to do it, then we're going to do it through our app. And I would say to a certain degree, whether you were directly and immediately responsible for Apple, supporting RCS or whatever, we kind of got to that point. But now the RCS solution kind of in place, maybe it lessens a little bit the Beeper necessity as far as iMessage interoperability. But I'm curious how that experience with openness impacts kind of your company's core value. Was that just a momentary need, or is this really kind of deep into kind of the DNA of Beeper as you move forward?
It's always been a core value. It's always been in the DNA of Beeper. We started with open source. We continue to contribute a lot of open source. Our core technology here is Matrix, and we continue to sponsor it, build on top of it. And even Automatic has been a big open source contributor for over decades, like 2 decades now. Yeah. It's a big value for us.
That's great. Yeah, no, because really, it's openness is truly the way to go, right? And it's the counterbalance between the companies that are closed that make the fight for openness worth fighting for, right? And that's the challenge, really. Wanted to circle back to some of the acquisitions. Jason kind of mentioned that and some of the news coming out of it. Automatic recently acquired Clay, which is a personal CRM product. We're curious to hear how Beeper will integrate with Clay. Is there, what is the direct connection between the capabilities of Beeper and the CRM management functions of Clay? And what does this kind of acquisition signal for the future trajectory of the Beeper product and its position in the larger Automatic family? Really, does anytime messaging come through the Automatic suite of applications, will there be a Beeper element to it, or do you pick and choose on what makes sense?
Yeah, so Well, let's start with what Clay is. It's an amazing relationship management tool. If you have too many messaging, well, if you have too many people that you have messaged or ever chatted with online or interacted with on Twitter or anywhere, it's amazing to just see that all in one place. I also love the founders; they're amazing craftspeople. Um, Oftentimes, when you like have a public-facing job, like I'm sure you do, Ron, Jason, you end up with like a lot of contacts, and it's really hard to keep in touch with everyone. Especially like it's it's very easy to lose touch with people, and sometimes this is loved ones. So I love this feature in Clay where you can just set a cadence for like 3 months or something, where 3 months should not pass until before I have like if 3 months pass without me chatting with someone, it brings that up again. And
That's really nice, actually. That's pretty good.
yeah. Um, and I think that's like features like those are really good for just making sure you're like a good human and you a good friend. Um, so a lot of users who use both Beeper and Clay have been asking for an integration between the two for a while. Um, and I think our audience has a lot of people who are super online and they just, or they have a public facing job again. They interact with so many people. So with this integration, I think we can create something more powerful, like the combination of two, all your messages, all your contacts, all your interactions. Beaver handles messaging, Clay will handle the intelligence. So we recently launched Beaver API, which is a way to let other apps access the Beaver data. So Beaver has data across multiple decades, across multiple channels, and we index that all in one place. And we don't want to be the only ones who have access to this. We also want other apps to be able to access this. So that's one of our ideas, that we will allow Clay to read the Beaver data and just become more intelligent as a product.
Yeah, and I can totally see how, like, I'm getting a better vision of how Beeper from like a wider kind of perspective into a portfolio of apps that are really around kind of human connection and human interaction. It kind of seems like that's maybe the foundation that you're talking about here. To that end, I'm curious to know kind of how you would describe Beeper's kind of core avatar. Is it power users? Is it power internet users? Is it everyday users, the enterprise? What? I mean, maybe it's all of the above in a perfect world, but how would you define that?
Yeah, I think it's all of the above. And well, initially we started with the early adopters were tech people, Twitter people. This was like we started in 2020. A lot of founders, a lot of VCs, knowledge workers, and then we started seeing everyday users, like parents, creators, basically anyone who wanted more focus. Enterprise is not our current focus, but I'm sure like this is a big opportunity and we can do something incredible there. I'm excited about sometime in the future.
So Beeper's had a bit of a roller coaster, from 2023 through 24, and now this past, with the Apple stuff, and then this past July with you taking the CEO role, and then launching these new features and these new tiers. So, what can we expect from Beeper in 2026? What do you guys have coming? What can users expect from the messaging platform and look forward to? What can you tease?
Yes.
Yeah, like I said, I like being secretive about our plans until we have shipped, but I can share some of what we have in stores. So a big theme is just making it more extensible and open, and this includes the launch of Beaver API. We just did that this week. Beaver MCP, you can now connect Beaver to Claude or Cursor or any MCP tool.
That's really cool.
Yeah, and we are also making sure that Beaver has all the features of the official apps. So more parity, that's a big theme. And yeah, we also want to just leverage all the new technologies that are coming up with LLMs, transformers, and make a AI first messaging app. So yeah, those are some themes we have in mind.
Awesome.
You got to be there with the AI, right? This is just one of those times. This is a pivotal moment where I think companies just have to figure out, like, how do we make sure that we are present in that with that technology. So
for better or for worse. Yeah. Mm-hmm. All right. Well,
Silicon Valley if we don't do that.
Yeah. Well, Kishan, we really appreciate the time. Like we said at the top, we're big fans of Beeper. We're cheering for you. We're rooting for you guys. We all are gonna, install we've installed the new app. We've checked out the new features. We'll continue to, and as you guys announce new stuff, we'll cover it here on Android Faithful. But thanks so much for your time, and keep at it. We're rooting for you.
Yeah, really nice talking with you. Thank you.
Thank you for the time, and thanks for having me.